Hello friends! The General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine stated that the situation in the Kupiansk area has become more complicated and dismissed the commanders of the 14th Brigade and the 10th Corps after the publication of photographs showing the difficult situation of soldiers on the front line. In social networks, it was written that the military were left without food and water. According to the General Staff, this happened in the Kupiansk area, where due to constant strikes on the crossings across the Oskil, the supply of the Ukrainian military has sharply become more difficult. Logistics are provided only with the help of watercraft and drones. It is reported that the previous command of the brigade hid the real state of affairs. The loss of part of the positions was recorded, as well as problems with provision, in particular a shortage of food in individual sectors. Based on the results of the check, the brigade commander was removed from his post and the head of the 10th Army Corps was also demoted. I will note that previously the head of the Russian General Staff, Gerasimov, stated the encirclement of Ukrainian troops south of Kupiansk-Vuzlovyi. That is, now the scandal in the 14th Brigade has partially confirmed this information. Also, the fighter Muchny writes that the situation in the Kupiansk Direction is beginning to change not in our favor and the enemy is gradually intercepting the initiative. The penetration of Russians into several districts at once is recorded, both in the northwest and southwest of the city. This looks like an attempt to shake the defense not at one point but along the entire arc, to stretch our forces and find free places for maneuver, writes Muchny. There are reasons to believe that such activation is partially related to the redistribution of our resources in the north of the Kharkiv region, where the enemy has also begun to act more aggressively. They take advantage of the moment and press where they feel a slump in the density of defense, on the eastern bank of the Oskil River. The enemy is consolidating the result, where the central part of the settlement of Kurylivka is already effectively under their control. Further, they do not stop and continue assault actions in the direction of Kivsharivka, trying to expand the zone of influence and create a bridgehead for further pressure. A separately alarming signal is the movement toward Kupiansk-Vuzlovyi. The enemy is already appearing in the eastern outskirts of the village, in the area of a garage cooperative. These are not accidental measures. They are trying to come closer to critical infrastructure and logistics, which may complicate our holding of the area. In general, the enemy acts systematically, simultaneously presses from the west, consolidates in the east, and looks for an opportunity to go deep through junction points. His task is to debalance the entire defense of the Kupiansk district, summarizes Muchny. I also want to touch upon the topic: is the war between Russia and Europe real? The Prime Minister of Poland Tusk, in an interview with the Financial Times, stated that Russia could attack a NATO member within a few months. As in many other similar statements by Europeans about the threat of war with Russia, one logical question is carefully avoided. Why would Russia attack Europe, and what could it even count on when almost its entire military machine is entirely and completely concentrated on the war with Ukraine? If Russia now decides to attack European countries, it will get involved in a direct military confrontation with the European Union and Great Britain, whose population exceeds 500 million people. And besides Ukrainian drones, European missiles will also be flying toward Russia. And the Kremlin will need to think where to get soldiers to protect Kaliningrad and St. Petersburg from a land invasion. And the soldiers, almost all, are in Ukraine. Even with new mobilization, Russia will not pull off a war on two fronts, both against Ukraine and against Europe. Can one speak of a Russian attack on Europe with such inputs? Until the end of the war in Ukraine, and even after it, a Russian attack on Europe is possible only under one condition: if the Kremlin is ready to use nuclear weapons in case it faces strong resistance and retaliatory strikes from the Europeans. Nuclear weapons are the only type of armament in which Russia has total superiority over the Europeans. Whether the Kremlin has made such a decision or not, and whether it even considers it seriously, and not just at the level of threatening rhetoric, is unknown. But without it, Russia will obviously not undertake any direct military actions against Europe. And it is precisely this nuance with the nuclear component that all European politicians, while stating the threat of war with Russia, stubbornly keep silent about. Why does this happen? Because if one does not just talk about a war with Russia, but specifies that it can quickly move into a nuclear phase, then this may provoke a tough discussion in Europe on the topic of: are we going the right way in our policy towards the war in Ukraine? If this path can end in a nuclear war, especially without guarantees of support from the USA, without which the NATO countries do not have nuclear parity with Russia. And given that no one in Europe will surely want to take such risks upon themselves, neither politicians nor society as a whole, then the discussion may lead to strategic changes in the course of Europe, which the current European leaders do not want to allow. That is why they talk about a war with Russia without adding exactly what kind of war it will be if it starts. Write in the comments what you think about this. Friends, as you can see, my channel has been getting very few views lately, so I'm making practically no income. If you could support me financially, I'd be very grateful. Thank you and see you in the next video.